Thank you, John, and to our band. I had requested that song since we are today actually finishing up on our dive into the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. Now, as I shared with you, the prayer itself was not actually written by St. Francis. It was actually published about 700 years after his life, but James Masters gave me a book of poems and prayers. And at the end of the service today, I'm going to share with you a kind of a poem prayer that St. Francis wrote, out of which the prayer of St. Francis came forth. And it's just absolutely beautiful. So good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Doing great. I mean, how can you not be after I'm alive with the Spirit of God? Like, I thought, what a great way to start the service, to get our energy going, to remember. And I love the second song, God is, I am, remembering that, that the whole experience of God is right here where we are. And Dee, thank you for a beautiful meditation that leading right into what we're going to talk about today. So if you have not been here the past few weeks, I encourage you to go online. You can go to our Facebook page or to YouTube and listen to the last 2 weeks' services, because that's going to bring you up to date on what we've talked about with the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. And the reason that, to me, this prayer was so important to talk about is because we've been dealing with some kind of hard stuff for many years now. And we've gone through this as a country and as the world before, but we're smack in the middle of some of it. And this prayer, to me, is just a roadmap for how we can show up in more peaceful and loving ways and bring that peace to our individual lives, to our families, to our neighborhood, to our workplaces, and ultimately to the world around us. So we talked about, the first part of it was, where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. And where there is despair, hope. And so today we're going to talk about where there is darkness, light, and where there is sadness, joy. So we're going to start today with where there is darkness, light. And this is all about letting our light shine. Remembering that we have this incredible light within us, and we can increase this light to really make a difference in the world around us. St. Francis of Assisi said that all the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle. And I remember hearing this before. You cannot go into a light room and turn on the dark, right? There's no switch to turn on the dark. But you can go into a dark room and you can light a match, or you can light a candle, or you can turn on a bulb, or turn on all the lights, and the light will always overcome the darkness. John 1:5 says, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot comprehend it. So when I was thinking about darkness in this context, darkness can show up for us in a number of ways. And one of those ways is that darkness can feel like there's something against us. Darkness can feel kind of scary at times, yes. And darkness has often been associated with evil. So I thought this was a good opportunity to talk about, what does Unity teach and believe about evil? Do we believe that evil exists in our world? And I'm going to answer that question right now. In Unity, we do believe that there is evil in the world. And I'm going to share what Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, has to say about it. From the Revealing Word, he says that evil is that which is not of God, unreality, error thought, a product of the fallen human consciousness, negation. And I love this. He says, evil is a parasite. It has no permanent life of itself. Its whole existence depends on the life it borrows from its parent. And when its connection with the parent is severed, nothing remains. In other words, if we continuously focus on the darkness, what are we adding to? we're feeding that darkness. But what he's saying here is, and I love it, you go back to Jesus being tempted, get behind me because you have no power over me, because he goes on to say, and in divine mind, there is no recognition of evil conditions. Such conditions have no basis in reality, and I would put that with the big R. Apparent evil is the result of ignorance, and when truth is presented, the error disappears. So we say this every week. There is but one power and one presence, God omnipotent. Omnipotent means all powerful, that the only one presence and power. But man, woman, has the privilege and the freedom of using this power as he will. And when he misuses it, he brings about inharmonious conditions. These are called evil. Evil appears in the world because we are not in spiritual understanding. We are not living from that perspective of spiritual understanding. And we can do away with evil by learning rightly to use the one power. If there was a power of evil, then it could not be changed. And so how do we do that? He says, evil must be overcome with good. We must dwell in the good so wholly that all the substance of our thoughts and our being are given over to the promotion of good. This is a mental process in which all negation, evil, is denied, and creative, fearless affirmation of God's perfect good is steadfastly adhered to. So could we all kind of raise our game when it comes to really focusing more on remembering and knowing that no matter what is taking place in our lives, that God, the good, omnipotent, is in the midst of it, and claiming that. I love how he says to dwell on the good so wholly that we must, we bring it with all of our being. And that is what cuts off anything that is keeping evil alive. So we believe that there's evil in the world because we believe man has free will. And we know that people do some pretty horrendous things, right? But we do not believe that evil is a power in and of itself, and we do not believe that there is a being that is the devil, that is something that is trying to trip us up. There's only one presence and one power, and it is God, the good, omnipotent. So Wayne Dyer, in his book, There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, which is what I've been focusing on, gives us some ideas on how to bring light into the darkness. And first thing he talks about is purity. And he says that light implies purity. And when you are able to bring purity to that which is impure, you are bringing light into the darkness. So he tells a personal story about he was out at a park one night, and it was the night of graduation. So there's all these graduates out there, and they're celebrating, and he started to notice that there was a lot of alcohol and there was a lot of drug use going on. And he said before long, he started to see that there was a lot of things being spoken, a lot of profanity, and a lot of threats of violence. And he saw them beginning to square off. So Wayne Dyer, and if you know anything about Wayne Dyer, he's really settled into his knowing of what truth is. He said he simply walked kind of into the center of where they were starting to square off. And he said he just emanated light. He said, I just focused so wholly on that light, and I extended that light out, and I surrounded everybody in light. And he said in minutes, the crowd started to disperse, and there were no more threats of violence. And that's the power that we have, my friends. We discount that. We think, really, what is my little light going to do? And then there's proof and evidence right there of what one person with that purity of thought, he didn't give in to the illusion of what was happening around him. He just brought the light full on, and it had an effect, because that's what God is. That's what love is. That's what light is. That's what we talk about all the time. And it's real, and we have the opportunity to use it and to become that. So don't dismiss the power of the light that you bring. Don't dismiss that. The second thing he talks about is truth. And James Russell Lowe said that light is the symbol of truth, and Wayne adds that darkness is the symbol of deceit. And so he shares that you can hide the truth in the darkness, but in the light, nothing is hidden, right? There are no mysteries. Nothing is hidden in the light. And so he uses this quote that says, the darkness conceals where the light reveals. I love that. The darkness conceals, but the light reveals. So the first part of this is be truthful. Please don't give into this, be brutally honest, be brutally truthful. No, we don't want to bring brutality into being truthful and honest. Be kind and loving in your truth. And let me ask you something. If you have something going on in your life and you're really struggling and you're trying to find your way, would you rather go to somebody who isn't necessarily going to tell you the truth, but is going to get down in there with you in the muck and help you stay there? Or would you rather go to somebody who is going to listen to what you have to say, be there with you in whatever it is that you're going through, but then help you move to a higher place? Which one, A or B? Probably B, right? And it was so awesome because in Ruth Ann's service yesterday, there was a woman who talked about that she really got stuck in the muck and she had an issue going on with her daughter. And she decided, well, the person that she really needed to reach out to was Ruth Ann. And so she said, for like 45 minutes, I just shared everything that was going on and everything from my perspective. And when she got done, Ruth Ann simply said to her, are you looking at that through Christ's eyes? Are you seeing that through Christ's vision? And she said in that moment it changed everything because she realized she was in her ego and she wasn't being opened. So being a person that people can go to and you're going to lovingly and kindly tell them the truth. And then, of course, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. We can be bearers of the truth with a capital T. It's so important in this time that we're not hiding our light, that we're not putting it under a bushel, as Scripture says, but that we're willing to speak our truth with a capital T, even when it's uncomfortable to us. And even when it's going to make other people uncomfortable, because is the truth that we teach, does it make other people uncomfortable? I know for me, some of the truth that I learned throughout the years here made me uncomfortable for a while until I opened myself up and I began to understand more and more and more. So we must be willing. Our world needs us, you guys. Our country needs us. Our world needs us and needs us to be out there with our truth in full expression. And then the third thing he talks about is surround yourself and others with white light. Now, I love the scripture in Matthew. It says, you are the light of the world. People do not light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So light is very, very important. It's talked about in scripture a lot. So in the 90s, there was a gentleman that came here. And this was like I'd maybe been coming to church for about 3 years at that point. And his name was Burl Mento. And does anybody remember Burl Mento, who was maybe here that long ago? Yes. And so Burl came and he did a Sunday morning service, and then he did an afternoon workshop with us. And it was so phenomenal. And on some Sunday, I will share all of what he had to share. But he really reminded us about the power of white light, sending white light out. So I had an experience because we had bought this little tiny poodle for my dad. My dad lived in Ohio. And it was going to be his Christmas gift. And so one day, we had I was the Girl Scout leader, and we had the kids over there, and somebody was holding this little puppy and dropped it on its head. And so clearly we had to take it to the vet, and it was very, very serious. It was just didn't know whether or not this little puppy was going to make it. But I had just gone to Burl Mento's workshop. And so my kids and we went to the vet numerous times a day, and we would just surround that pup with white light. That's all that we thought, was just surround it with white light. When we would be at home and we would think of her, we would surround her with white light, and that puppy not only got better, that puppy was my dad's greatest companion for the rest of his life. There is power in the light that we bring to any situation. I just want us to really get that. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Let me give light. Let me share light. Okay, so then we go to where there is sadness, joy. Now, I'm going to tell you that there's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of sadness in the world around us. And the more that I talk to people, the more that I'm reminded that everybody goes through things. Everybody has had a life experience. Most everybody has had a life experience in which there has been some trauma. And that brings this sense of sadness about. But there's just sadness kind of in general in the world around us. And I think a lot of it is because we aren't really tuned into the reality of God, the reality of that light and that joy. So I want to share with you first some scriptures that talk about joy. I'm going to tell you there's a lot of scriptures that talk about joy. In Romans 15:13, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. John 16:24, until now you have asked nothing in my name. Ask and you will receive, that your joy may be full. Psalms 47:1, clap your hands, all peoples. Shout to God with loud songs of joy. And that's why I love when we do songs like we did this morning. And it's like, yes, I'm alive with the Spirit of God. That brings your joy energy up, doesn't it? I mean, you can't help but be like, yeah, I'm alive with the Spirit of God. And then Proverbs 17:22. And this is true, is the thing. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. A crushed spirit living in that place, it affects our physicality, right? But joy is good medicine. Leo Tolstoy said that joy can only be real if people look upon their life as a service and have a definite object in life outside of themselves and their personal happiness. And Ralph Waldo Emerson advises us to scatter joy. And Mark Twain says, let your joy be unconfined. And Anthony DeMello says there's only one reason why you're not experiencing bliss at this present moment, and it's because you're thinking on focusing on what you don't have. And when we're thinking and focusing on what we don't have, who are we thinking about? Right. We're, oh, woe is me, poor me. That's not going to add to joy, is it? And I love when they talk about that. Well, let me go here first. Joy is a way of processing the world from the perspective of what is good and what is right in our world. Again, this is something we talk about all the time. Gratitude. Focusing on what is good and what is right, because I promise you, there are good things in your world. There are right things in your world. There are many things that you could focus on that could start to bring that joy level up. And I love this. He says that joyful people rejoice in their strengths, their talents, and their powers, and they don't compare themselves to anybody else. Anybody here compare yourself to anybody else ever? How does it feel when you do that? Does that increase you? Or does that diminish you? Unless you're in your ego, if you're comparing yourself to other people and you're like, look at me. Otherwise, it decreases you. But even in that ego, it's not going to be good for you. And he says that joyful people are not intimidated by other people's strengths and their powers and their possessions and their talents, that we rejoice in those things with them. Joy comes from rejoicing in all that you are, all that you have, all that you can be, and knowing that you are divine, a piece of God. And I think this is what we really need to focus on, my friends. I think we get away from this in our daily life. We forget that we are divine beings. Eric Butterworth says we are an eachness in the allness of God. I'm not all that God is, but all that I am is God. We forget this throughout our day, don't we? Because we get caught up in life. And if we focus on this more often, it's going to bring our joy level up. Leo Buscaglia, who's an author, tells a story of ancient Egyptians and their belief. They believed that the answer to two questions upon their death would determine whether they continued in the afterlife. They're pretty big questions, right? If you continued in the afterlife. And the two questions are, did you find joy? And did you bring joy? Did you find it and did you bring it? The Peace Pilgrim asked rhetorically, how could one know God and not know joy? So leaning more into that. Now, so I'm going to go on to the third one. Go to your purpose and know the joy that comes from being there. Now, Wayne Dyer says, we may look at this and go, well, I don't know what my purpose is. What is my purpose? And he goes on to say that the only purpose that we really have in life is to give our life away. That's the only purpose we really have. Because guess what, my friends? We're giving our life away all the time, aren't we? We're giving out all the time. And we have to ask ourselves, what am I giving? What am I bringing? What am I being a part of? And when we look at the prayer that make me an instrument of your peace, am I giving the things that really align with that? And you know, doing the service yesterday for Ruth Ann, for those of you who didn't know Ruth Ann, she lived this. Ruth Ann, she was so committed and dedicated, especially to the Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles was her thing, and to the Law of Attraction, Abraham. But she called herself an adventurous. And her whole thing was about bringing joy and expressing joy and reminding people about the joy that is already within them. And that's a powerful thing. And, you know, person after person talked about the incredible effect that Ruth Ann had on them because of her ability to be able to bring this joy. It makes a difference. I just want to say again, you matter. You make a difference. And so the last part in bringing joy where there is sadness is settle disputes and share your truth. And I love this one so much. Wayne says, make a list of the people that you would call if you knew that you maybe had a short amount of time to live. You were given a prognosis. And he said, and imagine what you would say to them. And then ask yourself, what am I waiting for? What am I waiting for? Why am I not telling the people that I love them more often? Why am I not sharing with them why I love them? We're going to sing at the end of the service today, shower the people you love with love. Love is the power, my friends, that will change everything. And I want to say this, if you are in a relationship with a partner or a spouse, and you haven't told that person that you love them and why you love them lately, because, you know, we've been in a relationship for a long time, they know. I don't need to tell them. That will move you apart quicker than anything. The most important thing is to let them know why you love them and that you love them. Tell them. Let yourself be vulnerable and tell them that you love them and why you love them. I know with my kids, I've always done this with my kids. And I find every opportunity that I can, and they're 42 and 37 now, I still find every opportunity that I can to tell them why I'm so proud of them, why, what I see in them. And, you know, I see the difference in their eyes when I give them that feedback. How many of us wanted our parents to be proud of us? And how many of us didn't feel like our parents were? Because our parents didn't have the ability to tell us that they were proud of them. Shower your kids. Tell your friends that you love them. Tell them why you love them. And start slow. I'm not saying that you have to get all gushy and mushy, you know, immediately. But start slow and let the people in your life know that you love them and why you love them. The other thing he says is ask anyone who, let me say it this way. If appropriate, if you have offended someone, make amends. It's not always appropriate to make amends, but if appropriate, make those amends. And if the person is not ready to receive that, your only job is to continue to love them and continue to just put that light around them. And If you have done something to somebody that has caused injury, no, okay, hold on. And if others have caused you injury, forgive them. Forgive them. Open your heart to forgive them. And really lean into, I think, the great master on the cross, he's been tortured, he's been beaten, he's been humiliated, he's been nailed to a cross. And what does he say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I think even when you think somebody is doing something to you and they know that they're doing that, they don't know in the bigger picture the harm that they are causing. They really don't. And so he was saying, hey, forgiveness is a big major part of this. Okay, so I'm going to invite us to share the first part of this prayer together, and I'm going to invite you to think about it as you say this. And before I do this, let me say, when we say, make me an instrument of your peace, when I think about an instrument and I think about music, you have music on paper, and there it is. It's not until an instrument, a voice or an instrument is playing the music that we hear the fullness of the beauty of that music, right? So we're saying here, make me an instrument. Let me be that which brings forth the beauty of peace. And the whole next part of this tells us how. So let's share in this together. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is light. And where there is sadness, joy. And the first part of this prayer easily leads us into the last part, because when we are seeking to be an instrument of love and peace and hope and forgiveness and all of that, then the only thing that can follow that is that we desire to console others before we ourselves desire to be consoled. That we desire to understand others. It's a big one. Before we desire to be understood. Wow, in our humanness, we certainly want to be understood, don't we? But we desire that first, and we choose to love others, even if they aren't loving us, because we know that what we give, we receive. In the giving of it, we receive it, and that is our greatest joy. So I'm going to close today with the poem Prayer by St. Francis of Assisi, and I'll put it up on the screen so you can read along. It's called Our Need for Thee. In our ever-present need for Thee, beloved, let us know your peace. Let us be your instruments that break every shackle. For do not the caged ones weep? And give us our inheritance of divine love so that we can forgive like you. And let us be wise so that we do not wed another's madness and then make them in debt to us for the deep gash their helpless, raging lance will cause. Darkness is an unlit wick. It just needs your touch, beloved, to become a sacred flame. And what sadness in this world could endure if it looked into your eyes? God is like a honeybee. He doesn't mind me calling him that, for when you are kind, sweet, he nears and can draw you into himself. What is there to understand of each other? If a wand turned the sun into a moon, would not the moon mourn the ecstatic effulgence that it once was? We are all in mourning for the experience of our essence we knew and now miss. Light is the cure. All else is a placebo. Yes, I will console any creature before me that is not laughing or full of passion for their art or life. For laughing and passion, beauty and joy is our heart's truth. All else is labor and foreign to the soul. I have stood in his reign and now fill granaries as do the fertile plains. Giving is as natural to love as sound from the mouth. There is a courageous dying. It is called effacement. That holy death unfurls our spirit's wings and allows us to embrace God even as we stand on the earth. Isn't that beautiful? I absolutely love that. So your homework, if you desire, your mission, if you desire to take it, is take this prayer. Keep this prayer in front of you where you can read it. Put it on your refrigerator. Put it on your mirror. Put it in your car. And go out and let yourself be the most beautiful instrument of peace that you can possibly be. Because together, we're changing the world. And I say to you, namaste. I see that beautiful light in each and every one of you. Namaste.